Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT10, and BT10 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the Bagra Army deck. So the Bagra Army deck, like the other armies that are represented in the set, is a deck that is centered around Digicross and lining up the Digicross with a heavy use on our tamers to be able to store our Digimon and be able to use them as material for our Digicrosses. So what's making Bagra Army interesting is the fact that our tamer is forced Digicrossing into our higher stage Digimon, and the fact that the deck is a control style deck that actually does have inter-turn interaction with a lot of abilities triggering during the opponent's turn, and we're going to be pitching and ditching our inheritable sources to be able to put them off of their game plan, just because a lot of them will have this inheritable ability to be able to gain memory for them doing their specific action when our cards are lined up. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Tokomon as the main Digitama of the deck. So the reason why I'm running Tokomon over DemiMeramon as the main is because, well, we're going to be ditching our inheritable sources due to our card effects, and Tokomon rewards us for doing so. So it has an inheritable ability where during the opponent's turn, when this Digivolution source is trashed by a card effect, then we get to draw up 1 card. So we're already going to be trying to trash our cards to our own card effects, and this is good anti-blue tech if they're going to be running some source removal, rewarding us for doing what we want to do with some card draw. And then the 5th Digitama of the deck could really be anything you want it to be if you even want to run a 5th Digitama. I'm going to be choosing to run 1 copy of DemiMeramon just because the on-delete inheritable is still really nice at cycling through our cards, just because we get to draw 1 card and then discard 1 card. So this could combo with a lot of our mid to low level Digimon, just because they do have on-delete abilities themselves. So it's just a good card to be able to synergize with those abilities. Next, onto the level 3s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Soundbirdmon. So this new version of Soundbirdmon is playing into exactly how Digicross wants to be played, where its when attacking ability is going to help load up our tamer with material by placing 1 purple Digimon card from our hand underneath our tamer to be able to draw a card. Cycling through our deck is usually pretty good, with the on-delete ability himself of save, so that way when he gets deleted, he gets to go underneath our tamer. So again, it's just trying to load up our tamer with as much material as we possibly can to be able to utilize the Digicross ability and our tamer's ability to make playing our high-end cards that much easier. Then he has this inheritable ability that's very similar to Tokomon, where during the opponent's turn, when this Digivolution source is trashed by a card effect, then we get to gain 1 memory, and we're going to be seeing this type of inheritable ability on a lot of our low-end Bagra Army cards, just because they want to be used as material to be pitched and ditched by their own card effects to try to put the opponent off of their game plan when they're performing specific actions. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of ChuuChuumon. So ChuuChuumon is going to be one of the deck's dedicated searching or digging tools, because he has the on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck, add 1 Digimon card with Bagra Army in its traits, and 1 Yuu from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So he's just looking for our Bagra Army cards and our main tamer to be able to want to have our tamer on the field, so that way we could try to have our engine going, with loading him up with as many Digimon as we possibly can, so that way we could try to make the most out of our cards. Then he himself has the on-delete ability of save, like Soundbirdmon, to protect himself and hide underneath the tamer and prevent him from actually going into the trash, so our tamer could then use him with that same inheritable ability as we saw with Soundbirdmon. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Gazimon. So Gazimon is just an anti-meta floodgate rookie to try to stop the opponent from performing specific actions and trying to make their plays as inefficient as we could possibly make them. So what Gazimon is locking them out of is their memory gain off of anything except for their tamers, so options and Digimons won't gain them memory, which forces them to try to get rid of Gazimon before they can make their plays as efficient as they intended. And then the last rookie of the deck is kind of another flex spot. I'm going to be running 3 copies of DemiDevimon just because we are trying to find our tamers, and our tamers are that important for how this deck wants to work. So he has an on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 tamer card from among them into our hand, trash 1 purple Digimon card from among them, and then the rest go to the bottom. So he's just going to help us try to dig out our tamers, but we already have a card that's helping us do so, which is why I like the consistency on this type of ability. But if you just want to run another anti-meta Floodgates or something else that fits what you're trying to gain out of the deck, then by all means do so. Next, on to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Damemon. So Damemon is another Bagra army card that has an on-play when digivolving ability where if we don't have a Yuu in play, then we get to play him from our hand for free. So it's just an easy card to use to be able to set up our tamer to, well, have our tamer on the field to store our materials for our Digicrosses. Then he himself has the on-delete ability of Save, which again allows him to be put underneath our tamer, so that way we could get more mileage out of the card, and he has that same style of inheritable ability that we saw with Soundbirdmon and ChuuChuumon to be able to gain memory during the opponent's turn when this card is trashed due to a card effect. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Troopmon. So Troopmon is another Bagra army card with the ability where during the opponent's turn, once per turn, when your opponent plays a Digimon or Tamer, then we get to trash one of this card's Digivolution sources to be able to gain 1 memory. So this is a card that's allowing us to try to prevent the opponent from making their plays as efficient as they possibly can by taxing them for literally playing Digimon and Tamers, which is what a lot of decks generally want to try to do anyway, and with all of our Bagra army based inheritable abilities, we're going to be gaining an additional memory for the act of trashing our Digimon, so it's a 2 memory gain for the opponent just playing their cards, which is pretty good of a tax to put them off of their game plan. Then he himself has the on-delete ability of Save, and he also has the nice inheritable ability that we saw with all of our other Bagra army cards to gain a memory when it's trashed. And then the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of MadLeomon. So MadLeomon is another card to try to take advantage of the opponent performing certain actions. So his ability states that during the opponent's turn, once per turn, when any number of cards in the opponent's hand is increased by a card effect, then we get to trash 1 card from his Digivolution source, and your opponent trashes cards from their hand equal to the number of cards that were increased. So let's just say they're using a Pyro Ball to be able to draw 2 cards. Well, utilizing MadLeomon's ability, well, we're going to force them to discard 2 cards, and because of our Bagra army-based inheritable abilities, most likely we're going to also tax them by having them lose a memory. So this is just really good at trying to stop and prevent them from having a really sizable hand. Then he himself has the on-delete ability of Save, so that way when he gets deleted, he'll be safely put underneath our tamer to be reused again later. And then he has a Digicross ability himself to be able to make it getting this card out as easy as we possibly can. So whether we're trying to Digivolve up into him or we don't see any rookies and we just need to try to hard play him, the Digicross at 2 will reduce his play cost by 2 by adding 1 card with Bagra Army in its traits from our hand or field underneath this Digimon to the bottom of its Digivolution source to reduce its play cost by that too. And then he has that same style of inheritable ability that we saw on all of our other Bagra army cards. And then we're not going to be running any level 5s in the deck because we really don't need to run any level 5s, so we're just going to be skipping straight up into our level 6s. So I'm going to be running 2 copies of Blastmon, and Blastmon is kind of the deck's game finisher just because he has the rush ability built into him, so that way when we play him, he can swing right away. And then on top of that, he has the on-play ability, where if this Digimon has 3 Digivolution sources in him, then he gains the Blitz ability, so even when hard playing him, passing the memory over onto the opponent, we still can swing with him just because the Blitz Rush combo allows us to do so. Then he has an ability that also is trying to limit some of the opponent's actions, where during the opponent's turn, once per turn, when the opponent's Digimon attacks, we get to trash one of this Digimon's Digivolution source to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, and then, obviously, if we're utilizing any of our Bagra Army inheritables, we're going to be taxing them with an extra memory cost attached to that. So it's just acting as a de-incentivization tool for the opponent attacking with their low-stage Digimon. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Tactimon. So Tactimon is going to be the card we want to just sit on the field to try to continue to be as disruptive against the opponent as we possibly can. So his on-play ability states that we get to play up to 2 level 4 or lower Digimon with Bagra Army in their traits from our trash for free, and then those Digimon gain blocker until the end of the turn, adding some extra defensive plays at being able to attempt to try to stop the opponent, while also having those Digimon sit on the field, and then all of them will have the save ability, so that way when they block, they'll get saved underneath our Tamer to then line up our Tamer's plays again to make playing our high stage Digimon as effective as we possibly can. Then he is basically acting as a good battery for our other Digimon to utilize their abilities even more, where during the opponent's turn, when your other Digimon's Digivolution source would be trashed by a card effect, then we get to trash this Digimon's Digivolution source instead. So it allows us to use our Troopmon and MadLeomon that ideally we're going to be reviving to be able to actually utilize their disruptive abilities, utilizing Tactimon's inheritables instead of theirs because they don't have any. And then the last Digimon of the deck is going to be the only level 7, and that's going to be 2 copies of DeathXmon. So yes, DeathXmon is still just that playable of a card, where he's just an easy card to hard play as long as the opponent has a wide field of Digimon and Tamers, and he's going to be acting as some more control for the deck, where his on-play when Digivolving ability states that we get a D-Digivolve 1 on all of the opponent's Digimon, and then we get to delete all of their Digimon that's level 4 or lower. So he's just acting as a mini board wipe when we go up into him, and then he has some good recursive removal, where at the end of the opponent's turn, once per turn, we get to delete all of their opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost, making him just a very easy to tech in card to virtually any deck, and a very powerful and devastating card when he's actually hitting the field. Next, on to our options, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Buzzing Fist. So Buzzing Fist is a pretty decent card for how this deck wants to run, acting as another consistency tool. So it has the main ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 card with Bagra Army and its traits from among them into our hand, and then trash the rest. Then we get to place 1 Digimon with Bagra Army in its traits from our trash underneath one of our Tamers. So it just, again, is trying to help dig for our parts and pieces, and it has the ability to line up our Tamer to then make the use of playing our higher end Digimon a little bit easier. Then its security ability is another way for us to be able to set up our Tamer, where we get to place 1 Yuu from our hand or trash without paying its memory cost and add this card into our hand. So it's just a very decent card at being able to line up a lot of our plays. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Calling from the Darkness. So Calling from the Darkness is a very powerful card for a lot of purple decks to run, just because it's adding to the overall reusability on our cards. So it has the main ability where we get to delete one of our Digimon, which isn't bad considering a lot of them have the save ability built into them, so we could trigger save to put them underneath our Tamer and not actually lose the Digimon. But if we don't have a Digimon in play, then we still get to take full advantage of this card's ability, where we then get to return up to 2 purple Digimon from our trash back into our hand, so that way we could then be able to reuse those cards over and over again. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Mist Memory Boost. So Mist Memory Boost is just the memory boost for the deck. You could run Purple Memory Boost in this deck and be perfectly fine. Mist Memory Boost just helps us fill up our trash for the few instances of trash-based synergy we actually want to take advantage of. So its main ability states that we get to trash the top 2 cards of our deck and draw 1 card. So that way it's just cycling through our deck and setting up our trash, while this card's also going into the battle area for its main ability of delay to gain 2 memory at a later turn to make more powerful plays possible. And then the last option of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Deathclaw. So this is kind of another flex spot for the deck. It could really be whatever removal options you feel like you want to use, but I think Deathclaw is still pretty good because it has the main ability where we get to delete one of our Digimon, which again will trigger our saves to hide them underneath our Tamer, setting up our Tamer faster, and then we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon that's level 4 or lower. So it's just a good card at setting us up and trying to delete the opponent's Digimon all in one go, with the security ability of just deleting the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, so it's still just a pretty decent card at being able to remove their mid to low level bodies. And then lastly, onto the tamers, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Yuu. So Yuu is the most important card in the entire deck because, well, this is just how the deck is going to be functioning as a whole, and what makes Yuu so good is he has some good disruptive turns himself with his All Turns ability, or once per turn, when a purple card is placed underneath this tamer, then we get to gain 1 memory and draw a card. So when the opponent is triggering our delete abilities to save our Digimon, or when we're doing it ourselves, it's just all feeding into the engine of the deck that is Yuu Amano. And then on top of that, his secondary ability is what's allowing us to use our high-end Digimon as effectively as we possibly can, where during your turn, once per turn, when we would play a level 4 or higher Digimon with Bagra Army in its traits, by placing up to 3 purple Digimon from underneath this tamer in that Digimon's Digivolution source, then we could reduce the play cost of that card by 2 for each Digimon we played. So on our level 6s, ideally we're going to be reducing their play costs by 6, basically force Digi-crossing them, making them easier to use and hard play for their effects. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Matt Ishida. So this is the BT2 version of Matt, and this is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixer. So he's just going to be hard setting our memory to 3 if it's less than 3 to try to make our plays as effective as we could possibly make them, on top of the fact that he has some good recyclability on being able to grab back a purple Digimon or option from our trash back into our hand when we hard play him, making him another card to be able to allow us to reuse some of our other cards. And then the last tamer of the deck is kind of a flex spot, but I'm going to be running 2 copies of the starter deck Matt, just because we are trying to delete our Digimon a lot, and Matt Ishida from the starter deck helps us gain memory when we do so. So he has the ability where during your turn, when one of your Digimon is deleted, whether it's by card effect or attacking into the opponent's security and then we just lose that security battle, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's just the fact that we get to suspend this tamer to gain a memory just helps make some of our cards a little bit more playable and a little bit more effective. And then there's still just a whole bunch of really solid tech and tools that we could think about incorporating into the deck, all depending on how you want to play the deck and what you want to gain out of the deck. So if we wanted to, we do have some other really solid rookies that we could think about playing. If we're just looking for raw card draw and card advantage, then we do have Sistermon Blanca that's allowing us to discard a card and draw 2, which is pretty decent. On top of the fact that we do have Labramon that's fitting in color, doing something very similar, although it's only a draw 1 and discard 1. Or if you wanted to take advantage of just a deletion style of effects, then we do have Tapermon that's just allowing us to draw a card when he gets deleted. Then we do have another anti-meta floodgate that we could think about running in the form of Psychmon. Then we do have Loemon as a hybrid that we could think about utilizing. Then we do have some other solid level 4s to incorporate in the form of Witchmon as a nice security Digimon that's letting us reuse our level 5 or lower Digimon, namely our level 4 Digimon that are accidentally going to be winding up in our trash. And then we do have some purple level 5s that we could run. I'm only going to be highlighting DemiMeramon just because he's a really easy card to hard play, because we want to take full advantage of our level 4s the best that we possibly can, and we don't necessarily want to digivolve into them. So DemiMeramon interacting with our deletion-based synergy, on top of being able to get a level 5 body out, just makes him a really ideal card to use. But because we are also playing lots of level 4s and have abilities to play our level 4s and just want to keep them sitting around on the field, the BT8 version of DemiMeramon is also really, really good at being able to climb our stages, just because with the DNA Digivolution ability, making sure that we have a ton of inheritable sources for something like our Blastmon to try to take advantage of. Then we do have some alternative level 7s that the deck could run when our level 6s don't have any inheritables and we can't really use them to their utmost potential anymore. So Omnimon Swart Defeat is another really good one just because he's anti-tamer hate. He has a nice security ability to play himself for free. He has a good on-delete ability. He's just everything you would want in a level 7. But if you're going for something a little bit more budget, obviously you could go with something like Zwart, or you could go with something like MadLeomon, just because they're still solid level 7s in their own right. Then, as far as alternative options go, we could think about utilizing Night Raid to try to play our level 3 Digimon and be able to revive them if they're in the trash, so this is a really good card to combo with our Soundbirdmon as just an example. Then we do have some other really aggressive lines of play we could think about incorporating on top of our deletion-based synergy we're already leaning into. So Demonic Disaster is a really good one where we get to delete one of our Digimon to unsuspend one of our other Digimon, so that way our higher level Digimon could be as aggressive as we could possibly make them. Then, because we're already playing lots of Tamers, we could run Schwartz-Lizar as a really good board clear for the opponent's mid to low level Digimon. And then purple just has a slew of different removal options that we could think about incorporating. I'm going to be highlighting Pandemonium Flame just because of the deletion-based synergy we already have going on, even though you could run something like a Fly Bullet, Trump Sword, etc. in its place just to be able to deal with larger body Digimon. And then we do have other memory boosts that we could think about using. So there's Glaive Memory Boost and Purple Memory Boost are both pretty alright for just how purple plays in general. And a really good alternative tamer that we could lean into is going to be Sora and Mimi for extra memory generation and to be able to cycle through our deck utilizing her secondary ability. But for the most part, this is just my interpretation on what I think a Bagra army deck is going to look like in BT10, and I definitely think it's an underrated deck. It's not tier 1 meta competitive by any stretch of the word, but it's still a fun and interesting deck, actually doing something different with the game on how Digicross is being used, and having actual inter-turn player interactions. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.